February 2nd, 2023. My name is Robert Bowen Jr. I'm a resident of Tapestry, and I have been a resident for going on over a little more than 4 years now. I'm very emotional because I have environmental illness, which was the result of exposure to mold in an apartment in a tenement building over 21 years ago. And then the happy news came to me that I actually was afforded a place in Manhattan Plaza. And I thought my ship had come in and I was going to be happy again because I lost a lot in that first apartment. I had to give up almost everything due to the mold infestation. And I didn't last long in Manhattan Plaza either, unfortunately, because one of the great secrets of Manhattan Plaza is mold. And that began a 17-year journey to find another safe place to live. And those years included a lot of transients, clinics, generous friends who put me up, and living with my mother while she was in her dying process. But even then, I couldn't be in her house 24 hours a day because I was reactive. And then I moved in with my best friend, and he and I both were reactive to his apartment, which was notorious. The building was kind of notorious for bad air. And out of the blue fell an opportunity, literally out of the blue. It was an answer to prayer. I got a phone call from an agent that there was a sublet here in the Tapestry. And unfortunately, we didn't take it. It had gone to someone else. And but we did find out that there were available apartments here. And we opted for one on the 12th floor. And our application process was messed up because it was online. And anyway, the apartment went to a couple in the building. And so my friend, his name is Matthew, or was, well, it is, even though he's deceased. Matthew and I missed out on moving into this building, which I saw as, of course, salvation from his apartment building where both of us were getting ill. And he ultimately succumbed, developed Parkinson's, and died. And an apartment finally did open up here, and after several tries, and I moved in alone and worked through the grieving process, worked through the pandemic, and worked through the some issues with fragrances and so on in the building. It's certainly not VOC free, I can tell you that much. And I got to know my neighbors, and I fell in love with the entire idea of a community spirit here because I could feel it the first day that I walked through the doors. It was a very special feeling, and I was captivated because I do believe that buildings have a soul, or can have a soul. And this one did at the time. And it took me a while. It took me about, I'd say, 3 years before I actually committed to the apartment as my home, because I had to sleep in the living room for 2 years because the former tenant had used plug-ins and air fresheners and any number of products, fragrant products, to cover the fact that apparently she was a smoker, or a toker is more like it. And I couldn't sleep in the bedroom because I had a terrible reaction to it. So I slept in the living room on an air mattress like a frat boy for 3 years. And then gradually, little by little, pieces of furniture began to show up in my life. Friends would give me this, or I'd find that. And I realized, oh my gosh, it's almost like you might say the universe is nesting me. And then I gave it my all. My interior design degree kicked in, and I just made the place my dream home. And then 2 weeks later, we had the flood on December 27th from the burst pipe in the apartment above me, 12D. And that brought everything to a screeching halt. And I was literally traumatized by it because I had been through this a couple of times already, where water intrusion in a building had robbed me of everything that was important to me in terms of, I lost thousands of images of photographs. I'm an amateur photographer. I lost all my writings, all my journals, just anything that supports a person in their identity as an artist of a particular type. And it happened again here. And I don't know why, but instead of walking away from it, I stuck through the process of the renovation. I don't know if I can call it a remediation. And was working with Jesus Villena, who understood my situation, was more than supportive, personally involved in helping me to reestablish my home in this apartment, in spite of the fact that everything in me was telling me I should just walk away. And just as we were about to get me back in, he was fired. And I don't really know what his transgressions were, as far as the corporation is concerned, but I know I and a dear friend of mine who companioned me through that stage believed he was really sincerely wanting to help me move back in. And that abrupt termination of that relationship left me afloat, going from one interim manager to another, every single one of them well-intended, but powerless, and never carried through the one thing that needed to be done so that I could move back in, which was a post-construction cleaning and making sure this place was as pristine as possible, because one of the conditions I have, besides documented mold injury is that I'm chemically sensitive. And I had to give up a career in construction and design and construction of my own because I suddenly was allergic to just about everything, or reactive. It's beyond being allergic. It's much worse than that because it affects everything. It frontal cortex, executive decision making, a malaise, depression, a sense of doom. That the effect on the body with environmental illness is universal. And so finally, I started taking the bull by the horns, and I brought a couple of teams in here to give us estimates on having it cleaned, and the whole back and forth with the managers, and stalling and impotence, and I don't know what all behind the scenes, but it just wasn't getting done. And then finally, with Alicia means, and we were able to get the cleaning done, and I moved back in for a trial run. And so here's where we are now. And I realize how much I really love this building. I mean, really love this building. And I see that it does have a soul. And it's a happy, bright, kind, loving soul that's longing for a chance to nurture a community. And I realize that community already exists. It just needs to be nurtured, because it is by nature nurturing. The concierge, there's Ronnie and Mary and Nelson, and now Natalie and Ariel. And there were others. Timothy, who was so kind. And the maintenance staff, Hesper and Dennis, and Dermot, who we all loved, and Victor now, and I'm thinking if I'm leaving anyone out. Poor Morgan was so ill-suited. He was part of the problem, for me anyway, because he wasn't really understanding of the needs. The poor guy just was ill-equipped. But I suffered as a result of that, because it was my furniture that was exposed to contamination. It was my apartment that wasn't completely renovated because of the way they stored things and omitted the kitchen for being redone. And anyway, I don't want to get into those details right now. I just realized how much I want to be part of this rebuilding of this community, because I think on a certain level, to be quite honest, Mr. Rose, you have abandoned us. That's what it feels like. That you took this building on as a pet project and well intended, and from what I know of you from your interviews, that this was a special project and it's cost you too much money. And you wish you never got involved. And I can certainly understand that. And I can certainly understand if you even have resentment toward that decision. Because we can resent ourselves for the fact that we've made decisions that are now inconvenient or costly. But as you said, the whole idea of making a good building better. And that's what I want to be part of. And I realized how much I want to be part of community building. I don't really have anything else to live for. I never did, and I don't think any of us ever did, except to be community, to be community. And I've been through hell since the day I came here, or that night I came here on December 27th, after I had such a renaissance of myself. I hadn't had a home for 17 years, and suddenly I had this beautiful home that I crafted lovingly, carefully, passionately, lost to this ridiculous accident of a frozen pipe. Knowing that I should, for my health, walk away from it and not chance moving back into a water-damaged building. And I pathologized that decision, that there was something wrong with me for wanting to move back in, that I was letting the rent market freeze me from making a decision. And how can I afford to move? And meanwhile, this apartment is expensive. It's more than I can afford, really. But it's my home. It was my home. And I'm saying this at the fear of coming across like either crazy or overly dramatic, but it's just an honest moment. I'm 74 years old. I don't have a lot of time left on this planet. My adventure is really resurrecting this sense of self that I have here that goes beyond the four walls of this apartment. I want to help to make this building a thriving community. It's begging for it. It's begging for it. And I think that we can work together on that somehow or other. I don't know how necessarily, other than what? Sharing ideas, seeing if they work. I don't see how they can. I think most people in New York want to feel a part of something. A part of something that is living and breathing and responsive. And that living, breathing, responsive entity is community. Anyway, I have a couple of books for you from, I know you like books, written by M. Scott Peck, Road Less Traveled, and Different Drum, which were fundamental in developing my sense of and offering me the experience of community and what it is ultimately, what makes a community a community is its capacity, what defines let me see if I can articulate this. What defines the essence and strength and definition of a community is its capacity to hear and serve the smallest voice. I kind of consider myself the smallest voice in this situation because I'm speaking of developing something that goes well beyond just an investment property. Well beyond just an investment property. Because you're kind of stuck with this building. Good, bad, or indifferent, and it certainly lacks a certain quality in its physical being, but it's also a building that by design was meant to be light, bright, and in that life affirming, which goes along with a lot of stuff you said at the Dunlap lecture about what really makes an environment toxic. And I think there's a whole lot of saving that can go on here in many ways. Anyway, once again, I don't even know if I told you my name. My name is Robert Bowen Jr. I live in apartment D. I've lived here since June 15th, 2018. One of my best friends in life I met here. I've fallen in love with a lot of the neighbors. I will say, and not with conceit, that I'm the kind of tenant you want. And I just am looking for an opportunity to be known, heard by you, and have you be known and heard by me. Because I know a lot about you through all of the research that I've done, and I think it's about time you knew I existed, that there's somebody out here who believes in what you're doing and wants to be part of that, especially in the rescue and reparation of the tapestry. All right, so I'm going to end this now. And I look forward to hearing from you.